Welcome to week 9 in statistics. This week, we are looking at finishing chapter 6 with 3 different topics. Difference in proportions for 2 groups, difference in means for 2 groups, and paired difference in means. Now, the difference between section 4 and section 5, so in section 4, we would have 2 different groups. So for example, we might have a group of people who sleep with a light on and another group of people who sleep with a light off. And we could compare the amount of minutes of REM sleep for the group with the light on to the group with the light off. In that case, we would calculate the mean minutes of REM sleep for the people with the light on, calculate the mean sleep for the people with the light off, and then we would compare the difference in those two means. The paired difference means there is a relationship between the two groups that's line by line. For example, we could be looking at the difference in age of a couple that gets married. And so in that case, we would first calculate the difference of an age, and then we would find the average of those differences. Another example would be your pulse rate when you're just hanging out in class doing stuff versus your pulse rate when you're taking a quiz. So we would find your pulse rate normally in class, we'd find your pulse rate during a quiz, we would subtract the two, and then we would find the average. So it's the order of operations. Are the groups related enough that you can subtract the values before you take the average, or are the groups different enough that you find the averages first and then subtract them? And it's usually pretty clear in each situation, but we have to use the right test for each one, either in StatKey or with a set of formulas or in a spreadsheet. So differentiating between those is occasionally a problem, but usually pretty straightforward. So those are our main goals. Other things to note are at the bottom of the videos page, I have a one-page summary of the first 2 sections of chapter 6, a one-page summary of section 3, and a one-page summary of section 4. And section 5 kind of fits in with the first one there. And then I have that sample spreadsheet that I hope you're made a copy of, either for Google or Excel, that has a tab for each possible scenario we can come across. Confidence interval for proportion, hypothesis test for proportion, confidence interval for a mean, hypothesis test for a mean, hypothesis test for a mean with the data as opposed to just having the summary statistics. So sometimes you might just be given the sample size, the mean, and the standard deviation, and you have to do a hypothesis test. Other times you're given the data, and then you have to calculate those values and do a hypothesis test. And same thing for a confidence interval. You can either do that with the whole data set or with just a summary of the data set with the formulas related to the central limit theorem that we introduced back in chapter 5. And then in the rest of chapter 6 in week 9, we're moving on to 2 proportions, hypothesis test and confidence intervals, 2 means, confidence intervals, hypothesis tests, and then whether we have the data to go with those or not. And having the data matters with means. The procedure is slightly different if you have the data than you don't. With a proportion, usually we're given the summary frequencies and we don't need the whole data set. And so using the spreadsheet can really help a lot. It'll make life easier than just using a scientific calculator with the central limit theorem formulas that are given on each of these 3 pages, and they're in chapter 6 of the book. The practice problems will be available shortly, along with the application for this week. And then week 10 is a review of everything we've done. So in week 10, shortly, I'll have, again, summary notes and spreadsheet, similar to same thing as what I mentioned earlier. There'll be a practice assignment that covers everything we've done in the course so far. And then finally, for week 11, finals week, there'll be a proctored final exam that you have to take in a testing center, and then there'll be an application that'll release during week 10 for you to work on. So that's like the other applications, I'm going to pick something else for us to go over and write up some details about. So if you have any questions, get in touch with me. We are almost done. Congratulations on your good work so far. Take care, do good math, and I will see you in the near future. Adios.